We're ready for a clap. Before we talk about the clap, let's get into it. Hello, beautiful people. How's it going? My name's Connor.
And I'm Becky.
And together we are Another World Belfast. We have a little message to show some love. And this is our podcast. Mm-hmm. I love that was just born.
Yeah, it just happened. But the best ones are organic.
It does seem like when we watch it back, it seems really written. I think for years we were doing lives and we were just saying that, and it was based off of Jedward.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Like, there's so many things that are in jokes.
Yeah, big inspirations.
Yeah, I would die to meet Jedward, but it was based off of Jedward, and it was their X Factor edition.
Yeah.
That I'm John and I'm Edward.
Yeah.
And together we are Jedward.
Yeah, totally.
Sorry to anyone that's listening that has that accent.
I think Gemma Sparks is a big Jedward fan.
Yeah, I think Gemma Sparks
is like a mega fan.
Jedward.
She did, yeah, recently. Or maybe I say recently, but it was like, could have been the other day, but it could have been 2 years ago.
I don't know how far their star has fallen, but maybe if it falls just far enough, they'll come on our wee podcast and talk to us.
Wouldn't that be a dream?
That'd be amazing.
I mean, they definitely won't now.
Well, you never know. Oh, well, not what now that you said that.
I think they do.
We'll just bury it in the past.
There was one year where they just gave like everybody a shout out, remember?
Oh, I think I do.
Was it for Christmas?
That.
It might have been for Christmas, and they just anybody who messaged them, they were like going, "Hey Seán, this is Jedward, and we love you," blah blah blah, and just like they were doing it for everyone.
I love it.
It's like, everybody get your Jedward message.
Oh.
Maybe we should do that. We should have like a cameo. You know? And
it's 50p for 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's about
Times are that tough.
Yeah, that's our sort of going rate. Hello, Seán. How's it going?
Hello. Hi, Seán.
Isn't it crazy how many roads lead back to Jedward?
It
yes.
Influential.
Yeah, I think they are. Well, we would love to have them on if they're watching. Well, I heard that they were watching, or that they watch and listen. For anyone out there that's listening, you can also...
not.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. For anyone out there that's listening, you can also watch. You can watch on YouTube. You can search Show Some Love Live. Mm-hmm. And if you're watching, you can also listen. You can listen in the bath, but you shouldn't really have a TV.
Yeah.
Or your phone.
Yeah.
But you can listen in the car. Maybe you can listen on a run.
But I do recommend for anybody who has so far just listened, particularly if you've got a wee bit of time off, like coming up over the next couple of weeks, because we've got Christmas coming, do yourself a favour and watch a couple of episodes on YouTube, because then you get to enjoy the delicious and hilarious edits that Seán does, where he reads us for filth.
Oh, I thought you were going to say our beauty.
Yeah.
But no.
You're gorgeous bake.
Yes. I think we said it before, but we'll keep on saying it. If you are on a podcast, if you are listening or you're watching, do all the things that you can. Ring the bell.
Leave us comments. Rate it.
Share it with your friends. Tell everyone that we're bloody wonderful. And go on and follow us on all of our social media platforms. Yeah. We are on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, kind of anywhere. If you search Show Some Love Belfast, you will find us or some content about us.
Like, people ask us all the time, oh, how can I get involved? How can I help? And like, people can do it sitting on their arse on the sofa, just by going on and just liking a few posts, commenting, interacting. That is so deeply helpful, because it helps the gods of the algorithms to share what we're talking about. And it may find its way towards somebody who may find that useful. You know, whatever we're talking about.
There's loads of ways to help us out. For anyone that hasn't heard of us before or is watching this new, hello, welcome. Mm-hmm. We are a charity and social enterprise based in Belfast, and we supply toiletries, clothing and underwear to people who are marginalised, and we work to bring marginalised communities together. So that could be that you are queer. Hello, we're queer, and we're here.
And get used to it.
But it could be that you're a person of colour, you're a refugee or asylum seeker. It could be that you're a woman, that you are marginalised in that way, and you maybe don't feel so safe in some of the other services. Well, we provide services for those people. The reason being for that, not because they're big baddies or anything, but just a lot of them are ran by organised religion, and a lot of people don't feel very safe in those spaces because it's not truly free. Often it comes with a Bible or a service or something else, and for us it's free, so you can come to we have a couple of clothing banks,
or it may just come along with a large helping of
Yeah, because it's terrible. If you're living in poverty, it's like the last thing you need. If you're going through it, it's the last thing you need. I think I'm sort of doing anything right now but talking about what we're going to be talking about today. But I think we should.
Well, I think there's a very, very tangible link in what you were just saying there. Whenever we're talking about how people receive, if somebody's circumstances are a bit shitty, like whether it's been they've experienced marginalisation for whatever that is, and the reception that they get to that is one of pity, So that is sort of a tie through to what we're going to talk about today, which is your article in Belfast Telegraph.
Yes, so Amanda Ferguson this week or a few weeks back interviewed me about for World AIDS Day, which was last Friday, about an experience of sexual violence that I had when I was travelling. I feel like I'm in some sort of mad group therapy.
You kind of always do whenever you come here, though. Seán's got like such a lovely listening ear and is extremely switched on and able for these types of conversations. It's a very safe space in the studio.
Seán actually kicked it off because Seán knew about it kind of going on before anyone else did, really, in terms of the article and everything else. We're planning this podcast coming up. And Seán's been really wonderful, very supportive, and so was everyone, actually.
Yeah.
I'm so emotional. But the reaction to the article was immense. What I expected was that people would blame me or tell me it's my fault, tell me to get over it, tell me it isn't true, tell me that I'm overreacting, that it's too much. And none of that came. I don't sort of mean to invite that into the world. If this if this goes out with a load of comments saying just that, well, we'll know where that came from.
Yeah.
But bar a few crazy turfs online who just despise us, they just can't handle our queerness and freedom and
they hate themselves.
That's it. But our sort of unapologetic call to support across our community in a cross-sectional way. Bar them, it's been amazing. It really has. The feedback has been so good. So to everyone that's listening who did leave a comment or sent something or spoke about it to their friend or spoke about their own story, we're so grateful for that.
Yeah.
There's lots of messages that we haven't got back to, but we're going to do that over the next while.
Yeah.
We're going to reply to all the comments and all the rest of it. But it is really, it's really, really touched us.
Yeah, totally. And that's, one of the reasons why I suppose every year we checked in to say, is it this year? Do we talk about it? Are you ready? One of the things that put that off each year was the fear. The fear of can you handle the reception if people do all of those things that you worried that they might, and as much as, and we've talked about this before, that as much as it's people that cause harm, it's also people that help to undo it or to help you to overcome a lot of those negative feelings and things. And I think, you mentioned there about turfs and things like that, but that was only on Twitter, and I think it's really important to say as well that like now we're starting to see the difference in the social media platforms and the places where people talk. And like, it's not exactly news to anybody that Twitter, or X as it's now called, LOL, sorry, I just dead named that platform. Then it's becoming really obvious that like anybody who understands how to communicate knows you don't communicate on Twitter, because it has become like a safe place for hatred. Do you know? So, it's frustrating whenever you see that, like,
misinformation.
Yeah, exactly. And misinformation. That it's actually the only place where that pylon of hatred will come. And it's actually been nothing to do with the article itself, other than the fact that the article existed, So the rest of the platforms are just more progressive places to communicate.
Facebook, I find that the audience on Facebook is still quite, like, I don't know, like regressed.
Yeah, big time.
You get the mummies,
and
the sort of the nasty aunties, and the maybe even the grannies at this stage that just don't quite get it. And we've talked about this before too, that maybe don't know how to take the information that they see on board and sort of think critically, or take it on board and think critically about it.
Yeah.
Some people would maybe read an article that seems very scientific and it just clearly isn't, or they read something that even to the most well-informed eyes seems legit, and they believe it. It's often people will say, "I seen in the news," and the news is no longer BBC or whoever else. All of the kind of well, trustworthy. The BBC's maybe not included in that,
Yeah.
but at least an establishment source. And they kind of take that, they pass it on, and then it's when you say that such and such told me that they seen it in the news, that one little fake post or that bit of I hate to say it, but fake news, it spreads, you know, and I think that's what's happened when we talk about TERFs. We're talking about trans exclusionary radical feminists. Go and Google it. It is. It's utter madness.
Now, one thing on Twitter's done good is, you know, the community notes thing. You know, so like when
I agree.
when like a bit of misinformation is spread, that if it's something really official, then they can like people can like actually correct it and say, no, this is wrong, and you know you'll get a disclaimer saying that what you've just read is a big pile of shit.
Yeah.
But there's just not enough of it, and it's far too welcoming for like groups like that, groups like, you know,
well, the far right sort of extremists,
I actually even saw that on a game advert. You know, like people had commented below to say that, you know, this advert for this like mobile game, the advert is not representative of the gameplay. Do you know? And you know, it's expensive in-app purchases and things like that, which I actually do think that is a really positive thing that other platforms could take from it, but it doesn't take away from all the other shit, basically.
Well, not to spend too much time talking about it because it was so minimal. The vast majority of people have been so understanding and have, I think even in the way that we posted, have steered themselves from pity. And we should do this with all survivors of sexual violence and of trauma and of shitty experiences. They've steered themselves away from pity to a place of understanding and compassion. You know, you can still show your emotion, but it's been incredible. I think what you were saying about we've been working on this for years. We've been thinking about this for years and really wanting to say it out loud. That was first inspired by a soon-to-be guest on our podcast. We've already recorded it. We spoke to Maddie Cavan. Now the stars Matthew Cavan, the stars didn't align for the article to be out in time for us to talk about it on the on this platform. We're going to do that in future.
Yeah.
And Maddie has said that they would love to have an in-depth conversation about HIV and about sexual violence and everything else. So we will do that at some point. But it was also just good to speak to them about their life and their performance and everything else, because of course they're an activist for so many things in the queer world, but they're an HIV activist, and but they're so much more than that. They are a wonderfully talented actor and performer,
and a full gig,
and a full fucking gig. The stories just didn't end. So we will. I think actually Maddie's maybe coming out next week. Perfect. So you can listen to Maddie next week. But yes, so we've been thinking about this for years. It has been, I think, one thing that 1,000 words in the Belfast Telegraph doesn't get across is just quite the journey. It's been, and it did start all those years ago, and one of the first people that I thought of in all of that turmoil was actually Maddie, because years ago he did an article for World AIDS Day in the telly and talked about his experience and what he had went through, and I think that always sort of registered in my head because it was something that I found so helpful. Just as a young queer person, it really helped to educate me. I've known Maddie since we were kids, but been following their journey with that side of things for a long time, and I always thought it was very inspirational. One thing that I always thought, though, before any of this happened, was that I would, like if that, because it's a risk for queer people, but actually even more so now for straight people. But if that ever happened to me, I would be loud and I'd be proud and I would shout from the rooftops. And it just didn't happen like that.
Yeah.
I went like straight. I shut down, and that was like emotionally and physically and every other part of me shut down. And we did speak to Amanda Ferguson maybe about a year afterwards, but a year or maybe 2 years after we started our project.
It was right at the beginning.
Oh, so it was really soon.
It was right at the beginning. Like, you were raw. You were like not yourself at all, you know. But it was right. Like whenever we were still doing the salon and things, it was as early as that.
Because it's a big part of our. It's sort of some people have been describing it as the missing piece, and I really like that. I sort of attached to that. I didn't quite realize that there was such a gaping hole in our story, and of course we've never filled that with any untruths, but that people have attached to the fact of like that kind of being the reason for this madness for like everything, you know.
I mean, you've referred to it over the years, you know, because in your TED talk, for example, you know, you talked about being really sick, but the thing is, like, it's the level of complexity that people kind of don't get, because you were also really sick because you had the parasite thing happening in your leg. So, so both of them happening at the same time meant that you did have the words to say about being really sick, but it wasn't just the full story, because that was one factor, and that was one factor that made everything else so much more complicated as well.
I could barely get on the stage that day for the TED Talk. If you ever watch it back, I am really proud of it now, but I am in absolute fucking bits. It was a lot. Like a lot. The people that were running TED at that time were just absolutely dreadful, and had zero compassion for mental health or for the complexity of what people were going through, especially even just in the story that I was talking about, which at the same time as this happening in Bolivia, I had somehow contracted, I think, a parasite that was attacking my nervous system, and it was attacking my legs especially, and it was the way that the doctors described it to me is that it was eating my nerves from the outside kind of in. So it started on my hips and started to sort of eat away. So I lost the all feeling in my right leg, and about half of my left leg went. Now I continued to volunteer and work. I'd actually did a wee bit of fundraising from family and friends, and we were doing things like replacing windows and getting stuff, sort of like band stuff for kitchens, all very practical things like we do now. So I didn't want to kind of like dump and run whenever I got sick. And like, I mean, my foot was skinned because it'd fallen so many times. It was really bad. But that then combined with what happened in Bolivia. So I don't really know where to start with that.
Well, I think whenever we were talking about the TED Talk, you know, like the idea that you know, it's what you were saying about not being able to cover it in 1,000 words and the additional complexity of it. Yeah. Because while you were spending your 3 months waiting for the test results to come back, you were also like unable to sort of tell the difference because you were so sick anyway. And it wasn't just about your movement and things. Your stomach was sick, you know, like you were losing lots of weight. So that added so much more into the fear, and compacted with the trauma of what was happening, which you were aware of at the time, but were pushing away, you know, because you were in survival mode, you were protecting yourself. So then it took so many years once you had come back home to be able to unlearn some of the things that so often, this is very true for a lot of things that happen with trauma and mental health. It's that you learn certain behaviours which are there to protect you and to keep you alive and to keep you pushing on one day at a time to just get through. But then eventually, as you start to come back into the world again and come back to yourself, some of those habits and some of those things that have been really fiercely protecting you all of those years then actually can start to harm you, because where you are told, I cannot trust, I have to look after myself, I have to, you know, go inward, then that is what it's doing to protect your heart, which you need to do then. Yeah. But then in order to unpack that and in order to come back to yourself and begin to trust people again, you know, that sort of tussle that happened that, you know, made our journey, you know, it took really like...
difficult.
Yeah, you know, it took years for you to fully trust me. Even though you knew you did, it was like your heart and your head were fighting with each other, you know, because I was giving you all of the reasons to say that you could trust me, but you were so scared because you had reason to be, because you'd been hurt so badly by people.
I think if we rewind it sort of right, so I travelled for years, and if we rewind it back to Belfast, I had a really serious problem with drugs. My mental health was seriously failing. I was in... I don't even know how to describe it, but a seriously questionable relationship.
You were toxic. It was a toxic relationship to each other.
Yeah. And I now know what I experienced at the time. I now characterize that as a breakdown. I split up with that partner. I moved out of my house. We had booked to go away for a couple of months, really just to sort of sober up and get our shit together and kind of, I don't know, find ourselves in some sort of express mode and hope that would fix it. And everything fell apart. So I took the opportunity I remember speaking to my dad and thinking, will I go away or will I not? And do I do it by myself? Because I've always been sort of scared, as most people are, I guess. But I remember saying to him and him saying, you know what, this is an opportunity. Take it. Give him the fucking mortgage. Give him all the debt. Keep your ticket. Maybe change your seat on the flight so you don't have to sit beside the person, and go to Asia and just see what happens. So I meant to go away for 4 weeks. I think it was in the end, and I was away for 4 years. Just something about being away and being more sober and connecting with the sort of hippie types that we're now surrounded by, you know, and all of the kind of language and the way of being that we're so lucky to have in our lives now. I experienced that for the first time in the Philippines, and then spent lots of time on the road rather than just getting drunk and riding people and partying on beaches, which you can only do a bit of. It sounds like you could do that for your life, but I can't, because I just don't I don't have it in me. But to sort of have a bit of a sense of purpose, I started to volunteer and started to kind of work out how aid works. And just through a whole series, actually, I met one person once that said the way that it works is just say yes to everything that you feel safe to say yes to, and make sure you say thank you. That's your journey. You don't need to plan it. The universe will provide for you, and that will be served up. And throughout that time, I was able to meet lots of people who work for projects or had experience or knew someone that I should go and speak to. And that, on a long and winding, traumatic road of kind of healing, lots of, I don't know, ceremonies and sages and cleanses and retreats and all of that. I ended up, weirdly, back with my parents for a while. So I was meant to be back for the summer. Hadn't seen them for ages. And I thought, I'll come back for the summer. I'll stay here for a couple of months. I'll get to see you. I'll reconnect with you. Because I always felt sort of kind of disconnected. And I sort of felt like I was there. And I sort of it came to that place. Well, I ended up home for about a day, maybe 2 days max, and I listened to a podcast from This American Life. So Ira Glass was doing a special about Greece at the height of the Syrian crisis, and they were in a camp called Skyromangas, which is now described, or was even then described, as a concentration camp. It was a locked camp, so you couldn't get out, and some of the conditions that people were had to face were horrific. And they got into the camp, and they were making recordings in there, and it really inspired me. They spoke to some aid workers and volunteers and people that were out there that were just trying their best. They maybe didn't have skills. They didn't work for the UN. They weren't medical professionals. They weren't out with MSF or anything, but they were there, and they were able to provide the manpower, the sort of people power that's needed. So I thought, I'm going to do that. And so I stayed up all night. I connected with a few groups. I actually booked flights to Greece, and I at the time smoked a lot of weed, so I sat up and smoked and got off my nut. My dad actually got up to go to work very, very early. Forgot I was in the house because I didn't live there, and I nearly scared the shit out of him standing making coffee in the morning, and said, we've got something to tell you. And he says, what's happened? And I said, well, I'm actually I'm gonna go to Greece. And he says, what? He says, when are you gonna go to Greece? Like, when did you book the flight? So you're gonna be here for the summer, and then are you gonna do Greece in the winter? I says, no, I'm gonna leave like tomorrow. I think it was like the next day or the day after or something. So I think that sort of says it all about that kind of time with my folks. But I left and went to Greece with really none of the skills. I thought I'd gained some of that knowledge in humanitarian projects along the way, but I really hadn't learned how to take it on board and then release it. I could take it on board because it's a human thing, but I found it really, or I didn't know that you even had to release some of the experiences and some of the trauma and some of the negativity that you will come in contact with in those spaces. What I seen and experienced in Greece was truly horrific. Really a lot, like people having to shout and fight and beg for food. People that were being fed military meals that were essentially animal food. people in the most terrible way you could ever imagine, and asking for just their basic needs to be met, while having to go through a system that literally made no sense, and nobody could make head nor tail off. So we will talk about it someday in the podcast, but in Greece, long story, very, very short, but in Greece, I aided in a what amounted to do a revolution in the first camp that I was in, and I met with the camp elders because it was so bad. This camp was actually ran by these Greek mafia types. Thought they were scary, and I was very much in the space of like, I'm from fucking Belfast and I'm an EU citizen. I was used to sort of spending time in Indonesia where you're really not going to go to prison. But I was like, if the worst comes to the worst and I was to get arrested here, doing whatever you need me to do, as long as it's, I'm not murdering someone, they'll just deport me. I'll just go back to Ireland. I'll be grand. I'll be banned from Greece, but sure, whatever.
It's privilege.
And that's what it is. Because when you're in that position, as a refugee or asylum seeker, you don't have that privilege. You'll be deported to your country and you'll be murdered. So I went and met with one of the camp elders. He's now made it the whole way to another country, and is doing very, very well. But he met and he was really in bits and was sat and had a coffee. And I asked if I could do anything, what would it be if I was to sign off from this organisation? Because I believed in the organisation. They were called Drop in the Have It. It was a Norwegian organisation. But I didn't.
In the ocean.
A Drop in the Ocean is the English translation. They were wonderful, but what was going on was really, truly terrible. And he had said it's quite easy. Actually, we don't have access to the keys for the camp, but you, as a trusted member, as someone with a license that's within the camp, you have access to that. If you were able to get those keys for me, we could. He was like, well, we've found out all of these things. We can self-govern. There's other camps that have did it. There is legal standing for it. The UN should have our backs, but we would love to do this. So I stole the keys and I give them to them. I was then, followed by that, I was arrested by the Greek Navy, which was fun. It was all in Greek and I didn't really know what was happening.
And somebody tried to kill you.
And somebody tried to kill me. So the guy that was meant to be chaperoning me with the keys, the Spanish guy, lost it because I told him I lost the keys. And he flipped. He kind of knew what the setup was. And I said, look, you've got the right to search me. You can question me for as long as you want. You can do whatever you want. Look through my bag there and stuff, but I've lost them. I've misplaced them. So what are we going to do? And he kicked off. So I said, look, I'm going to just remove myself from the camp. I'm going to go up to your office. I'm going to speak to your manager, and then I'm going to leave the camp. I've already signed out from Drop in the Ocean. I hadn't, but I've already signed out, and I'm going to make an exit here. And when I was in speaking to his manager, this horrific woman, went in to go and speak to her, and she went nuts. She started going crazy, and I lifted my phone out of my pocket thinking, it's just like, it's the best thing you can do in any situation where, and this doesn't just go for activism, it just goes for life. Take your phone out, even if it's not on video, hold it. And I held it, and just as I held it, because she was going mad, he arrived at the door with a rock and said, I'm going to fucking kill you. And ran at me to bash my head in with this rock. These people were vicious, and only that she shouted, don't do it, they've got a camera. He stopped. So it's funny, I'm saying a long story short, and I just told you the whole story.
Yeah. That's
but
okay.
So I was taken, in the end it was taken, so at that point the Greek Navy came, took me out of the camp, and as they were checking me out, there was a really lovely police guard. We've got this thing, we've talked about it before. It's really important to be kind to people, especially people that are working, that are in positions like bouncers that we know when we're in clubs. We'll know everyone and we'll chat to them and all the rest. It's important to give that space to people. Well, I was doing that with the police at the same time on the gate and having a wee chat or bringing them a wee coffee or whatever, because you want to know that if it kicks off, that they've got your back. And that you're their friend, because it's a dangerous situation, especially as a queer person in a camp where there could be potentially people that want to murder you.
Just for being who you are.
Just for being who you are, and because of the cultures that they're from.
Yeah.
So I got to the gate, and as it turned out, I was in the back of a Jeep, and as it turned out, the policeman I knew, and he said, what's going on? And I says, I don't really know. It's all in Greek. I says, I lost keys, and they're going nuts. It says, she's going crazy. I didn't even get to tell them about the guy with the rock. And the guy with the rock appeared at the gates just outside of the camp, and he shouted, and he says, Connor, he says, the moment that you come out of this camp, I'm going to find you and I'm going to kill you. And the policeman stopped and said, excuse me, where's he from? I says, I think he's Spanish. He says, in your country, do you threaten people with their lives in front of the police? And I says, no. I says, like, that's very, very disrespectful. And he says, okay, you wait here. So it ensued all of this chat in Greek. And he then walked over with another police officer to take your man. They took him away. And when he came back, he said, just so you know, I've made sure that these people, I don't even know if I was officially arrested, but I've made sure these people are going to release you. And because you're under threat, I'm going to put we're going to put some guards with you. So we are going to make sure that you're safe. We're going to make sure that you get back to your, we were staying in a camp that was kind of just facing. It was actually like a holiday camp that we just kind of taken over. They were really lovely people. But we're going to take you back there. They're having a party right now. We're going to sit with them. We're going to speak to the guy that runs that camp, make sure that you're safe there. And until you leave, we're going to make sure that you have protection, because it's clear that this person has an intention to harm you. So all of that happened in Greece. That was then followed by another camp full of, I don't know how many thousand people at this stage. It was horrific.
And I think it's important to note as well is that the reason he reacted that way was money, was corruption, was because with the self-governing of the camp, it meant that people were not able to be, for want of a better phrase, like held to ransom, that they were going to lose their power. And that was the thing that made him so angry, was that he was losing the power that he had over a group of extremely vulnerable and desperate people. That always has blown my mind, that element of it.
I think the way that it worked out, the way that it worked in Greece at that point, was you could apply for a license. And I think that through some series of corruption or events that would amount to that, this gang that were originally in illegal logging, very powerful family in Greece, they took over the license. So he had actually hired him. So yeah, it was money making. It's making money off the back of some of the most vulnerable people on the planet, never mind your country. And even just the way that, you can sort of feel it. You can feel it in the air, just how people talk about other people. You can feel the lack of humanity, and the kind of, it's what we experience here. It's the them and us. It's the separation between you being in any way like those people, and them maybe being a commodity. So this is the longest story that I'm really not making short, but Greece, in short, absolutely fucked me up. We've got stories for days, and we will tell them someday. But it was a lot. And
it's made it so much harder for you here as well. Whenever people don't really fully get it, whenever you see news articles and people being really just shitty and disparaging about, saying that people are like economic migrants and things like that. And it's just ill-informed fear and hatred that is being stoked by the media at the same time. And so that makes it, it really was one of the things that had you really fall out of love with humanity, was then also coming back here. And actually we met somebody recently, an old friend of mine, whose sister had just gone away to some of the camps recently, and then had the same experience as you, coming back to Belfast and seeing that people here don't realise how much privilege, and I'm not talking about money, I'm just talking about the privilege of the fact that people can go about their life, and that there's water in their taps, and that they can make a bit of toast if they want to. It's those small things that mean that you are somewhat safe, and that you have what you need. And people sort of are so much in this space of I don't have what I need, that they can't see what they do have. And that makes it so much harder to connect with people whenever you can see it and they can't, and it's it was a long time for you learning to be able to have empathy more again for people that are here, because you then had to really reach very far inside yourself to find empathy and sympathy for it's because they just don't know, So I mean, and that's part of the reason why
I'm still getting there.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the reasons why we do what we do. Why it's so important for us. We could understand the dynamic of, it's not just about this particular group of people who are marginalised. There's commonalities between the queer community, between refugees and asylum seekers, between people who are experiencing homelessness or poverty, or people that are experiencing misogyny.
That's why we say marginalised people, and people are like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so it makes it harder it's why people are like, oh, it's hard to explain what you do, or it's hard to, why is it that you work with all of these groups? Because it's really important that people can see that while we're divided and while we're being pitted against each other, and it is true to say that when people are making those shitty comments on Facebook or on a Belfast Live article or whatever, and they're talking about things like, what about the people here? It's like, it's all part of the same problem. Do you know, the reason that people flee war and persecution is because of capitalism and because people are creating wars and looking for resources in other countries. It comes back to us and the choices that we make and what we do. It's all connected.
And who we vote for.
Yeah.
I don't believe in our system.
Yeah.
I don't. We had actually on this article release a local MLA that we love, which is a sweetie
Good
Kate Nicol.
person, really
We've talked about her before. But I fundamentally do not believe in our system. I will still continue to vote. I will still do the thing. I will still work with local politicians and councillors to make whatever change they can make happen. But it's not something that I am inspired by.
But that was one of the things that helped you in Greece as well, and it's one of the things that helps us now, despite the broken system and despite the world that we live in, is that somebody said to you, if you can't change the world, you can change someone's world within it. So
in Greece they psychologically assessed me and my coordinator Holly, who I love, she's a sweetie, and shout out to Holly, I love her. But they spoke to us and assessed that we were mental, and that we had lost it, and that it had got to us. We had sort of let it get to us, and it was too emotional. Even now, I don't think I'd be able to process that. It's so deeply unfair, those systems.
I think it would be unhuman not to. I really do. I don't think there's anybody that could ever really come away unscathed from witnessing that level of pain.
There's a lot of people there's sort of a special type of person that works in the third sector, even here, that, and I have so much admiration for people who work really on the front line, providing some of the aid that we make up and supply, because it's unimaginably hard.
It's why Brene Brown has been a game changer for us, because she's for anybody who doesn't know, and we'll share some links to Brene Brown stuff below this, but she's a researcher and an academic who looks at things like shame and vulnerability. And as part of her research, she did a huge study looking at people that she could see that were what she described as wholehearted, people that had an extended amount of empathy, people that worked in aid, people that worked in therapy, people that worked in a space where human pain existed, and they were trying to do something to address that. And she looked at she was trying to find the nugget and the thing that let people remain in those worlds. And the one thing that she found that was a commonality, you get people's different personality types, but the one consistent thing that she found was that each of these people had razor sharp boundaries. And that was the thing that allowed them to protect their own mental health and their life, so that they could keep getting up the next day to keep fighting, despite witnessing the pain, despite witnessing sometimes some of the worst things of humanity, in order to keep your chin up and in order to not end up taking your own life or something similar, is that you can draw the line that says, okay, I can only do what I can do. And in order for me to apply lots of help to lots of people, I maybe can't focus down this rabbit hole on this one particular issue. And then to other people that may seem, and I'm sure that we really have learned from that, and we're getting better at it ourselves, but I'm sure at times sometimes we maybe seemed,
it's heartless, it can be it's kind of cold,
it can be harsh almost, but it's actually based in love, and it's based on having the energy, the mental energy, the physical energy to get up and to be able to do a bigger amount of work that will affect more people positively. But it's trying to be positive, trying to show love, and trying to be kind. It's all of those things, but it's back to our show some love message. It's not about be kind. It's also about showing a greater level of love to as many people as you can, and also to yourself at the same time.
And doing that in your way, can be something as small as just supporting a local independent organisation. We know one of those. But it could also be, getting stuck in. I think one thing that really helped to settle me and really save me in that situation was after Holly and I were assessed, we were sent off. We were split, so she was sent off to Macedonia, and I was sent off to the Greek border. It was whenever they closed the border, they were like shooting people in rivers. Like, I mean, it was really bad, and they sent me far north to a place called, well, whatever it was called.
Was it Syria?
No, Syria was in the south. It was called Thessaloniki. But anyway, so they sent me up there, and it was next level. There were people all over the streets, sleeping rough, and it was because the border was blocked. It created this sort of mass of people. Well, I went there to kind of forget it, and I was sort of just hit by it. Even just the walk, they put me in this hostel. Even just the walk to this hostel, which basically my brief was to go for a couple of weeks, chill the fuck out. No longer be a risk to myself or other people, and then hopefully step back into another camp. But I remember going there and just absolutely breaking, and I went out for a smoke one day. I was really just basically sleeping and smoking and eating, but I went out for a smoke one day, and I met this lady called Jackie, and she came and sat beside me, and she says, "Are you all right?" And it wasn't, and I remember asking. I remember so Jackie was a volunteer. She was from Canada. She's a little bit older. I think she had retired, and she just left. She'd had enough of the world, and she wanted to be useful. And she had a wee bit of money, and she was funding herself, but she was working with these projects. And she actually had a load of experience. She was like the person that I needed to meet. We often talk about how God and the universe is sort of aligned. It's the same force. So no matter what you believe in, you can connect with this. But I really believe that the universe served me, Jackie. And she sat beside me, and she was like, I don't need to know your story. I don't need to know what you've been through, but this is really hard. And I want to let you know that no matter what's happened, it might be confusing, and you might be upset. I'm upset. But she says one thing that I heard years ago has really helped me. And it really helped me inspire a project this, but it's if you can change the world, you can change someone's world within it. And it really helped to just break all of that down. It's one day at a time. It's one task at a time. It's not necessarily even understanding the full picture, but just putting one step in front of the next, and along that trying to make the impact that you can make with the tools that you have. You can change the world. The world is fucked. And we hope for the best that it will not be at some point. A lot of us don't have that hope, but we can make an impact on people's lives out there one by one. And that might be something as simple as standing at an aid distribution in a camp, just giving out some bits. You know, those bits fly past you, and there's thousands of people for every one of those drops. But each of those people takes away a package that you don't even think about. And it's the same for us, you know, with our love packs or the bits that we give out. We don't really think about the bags that go out of our clothing bank.
You couldn't possibly. You'd get overwhelmed.
Yeah, we could. We don't. We really try not to. In fact, only once I've ever seen our stuff in someone's bathroom. Do you remember that? Your man up in North Belfast. It was a guy that we, on a personal capacity, had given him a pack, and then I think we had a mattress and another few bits, so we went to go and drop it off to this guy that was just off the streets. Whew, it was a lot, because we are intentionally sort of one step away from this, but to see the bits that we'd given him, the sort of nothing else in his house, and needles all over the floor, and just like this guy was in a real state.
Chaotic.
Really, it was chaotic, and his little sink just had like this is why we don't do it, because it breaks me, but his little sink was just like the only bit that was kind of clean, and he had like a little bit of toothpaste and his wee toothbrush and his wee Lush something that we had a load of stuff from Lush at the time, all of the wee sort of bits that just sort of maybe make you feel human. But yes, so I mean that was one of the big takeaways that then fed into our project in Greece, which was if you can change the world, you can change someone's world within it. Following that, I basically ran away again. So I went off to South America with my friend Maddie, who I just love. Maddie is straight and has a few drinks, but doesn't like go to mad parties, doesn't do drugs, doesn't like ride everyone. Is just such a gent. Maddie is English, and is one of the few that I've met that are just really sweeties, like a dream person. Maddie, no offense to you, and you know this, but Maddie, if Maddie would ride me, would be my husband right now.
Yeah, I would get a look in.
Oh my God, like he's wonderful. But anyways, I met him in Australia, and we were talking back and forward, and we decided to go to South America. So We were going to go there and travel and do the things. So I basically landed upon Maddie in Buenos Aires in Argentina. Thank you. And I came off the plane. I lost my card straight away. My bank card. Shit hit the fan again as soon as I stepped into that new space, and we spent about a month in that city waiting for that card and basically just crying. I took a lot of drugs. We slept a lot. We ate a lot. And at that time, I promised Maddie, because he knew that I was in a really dark, very sort of scary place, that I wouldn't do what I was sort of known for doing at that time, which was flouncing about the world, meeting someone somewhere, ending up volunteering for a project or doing some work with someone else, and getting so stuck in that that it took another little part of me. I didn't really have any other little parts to give, and he could recognize that. So he said, "Look, when we're here, please God, don't meet anyone. Don't talk to anyone. You know, don't, because I'm very much in the space of, oh, what's that across? Is that a community centre? Oh, are you doing such and such in there? And oh, is that an NGO? And what does that NGO do? Oh, they came for an earthquake, but they stayed." I could see those conversations. Maddie sitting on the other side of a table, just like, don't dare.
Yeah.
Well, I did. So we ended up going the whole way through South America. It was very beautiful. And we ended up in Bolivia and in a place called Sucre, which is way up in the mountains. It is beautiful. It is so high. You have to acclimatize for like a couple of weeks until like you're really on it. Coming from that height.
There's like very little air.
Oh, it's crazy. Coming from that height the other way around, when you go back down to sea level, and I did it very quickly when I came back, because I'd sort of acclimatized there, I felt like I'd taken loads of speed or something. Like I was just like
oxygenated.
Is that the one? Is that the city? There's like a higher part of the town, the lower, and there's like the.
That's La Paz.
Oh,
so
that's
La
La
Paz
Paz.
is the highest capital in the world, and Sucre, I think, is actually higher. It's not a capital; it's like provincial capital.
Yeah.
But it was the colonial capital. La Paz. Sorry, not La Paz. Sucre. La Paz is crazy. Mad.
And it's like, I just want to kind of re-emphasize the timeline of that, is that you just experienced all of that in Greece, and you'd had such a disconnection from trust and from like faith in humanity and all of those things, and you came to South America and then eventually Bolivia to heal.
Yeah.
And then that's where this story comes back in again.
Weirdly, I thought I was back on the road. You know, I sort of felt a little bit stronger. Maddie is just give me life, and we really, he's so chilled that
He saved your life?
He did. He was really wonderful. Like, but I spent lots of time healing and felt like I'd sort of got there. And when we were in Sucre, one day I went to a market to go and get some veg and do the thing and sort of have a wee nosy and sort of do a wander, because that's what you do in your back pocket packing, because you've got the time. And I came back and I said, look, I met this lady. She's actually in this article. She's featured. But she's called Andrea. She's very sweet. She works for a vegetarian cafe. She works as a cook. We're going to go there and we're going to go and have food. But she also runs this wee project for children. So it's basically a respite project for children, where an NGO had came into a local town close to Sucre, set up this whole thing, which is so common in international aid. They threw the money in and then they basically did a runner. So they left them with this building and all these hopes and dreams, but with no staff, no funding or anything. So she had told me that she had taken it over. And like, I barely spoke Spanish. She barely spoke English, but somehow we communicated this whole story. And she had taken it over and she was running it with the community. And it was basically a respite for children so that they would be out of work, so that they could be sure that they aren't down a mine somewhere or they're not in a factory, so that they could kind of be counted. It also worked to empower the local women of the community so that they could go out and they could work themselves. So the town that it was in was shocking. It was pretty spicy, like no roads. And this centre was sort of built on a big sort of kind of cliff thing. It was all sort of very muddy and that. But it was, I think possibly when it was built, it was all singing, all dancing, but it got really run down. And she was telling me this.
Such a classic story. Throw a load of money at an international project to set it up, but then leave nothing to maintain it.
Yeah.
And
Especially when there's like philanthropy involved, where it's like, you know,
Very that.
PR, like, look what we done, and then hightail it.
Exactly. It's actually, and then that's really harmful often in a community as well.
So even in the theme of Jackie and her, if you can't change the world, you can change someone's world within it. And in the idea of providing practical support like clothing and grease or other bits in other places, I thought, I thought I'll go and I'll see her. And I remember telling Maddie, and I'm just going, don't do it, Connor. And I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go for the day. I'm going to just give some practical help. Maybe I'll clean. You know, the kids, I think actually the day that I went, there was no kids or anything there. I was like, you can show me around. You can tell me about your town, and then we'll see what the crack is. I made it very, very clear, which I always did. Like, I am white and I'm stunning, let's be real. But I never sort of appeared to have money, but it's often the assumption in other parts of the world is if you're white and Western, that you maybe have some trust fund that they could access or whatever. So I made it very, very clear that actually I really don't have money, but I could maybe... we'll work something out. I'll go and see what the crack is. So went there anyways, and it was like I was saying, it was run down, and I instantly thought we could do something really practical here. Maybe if you need help, I'd seen lots of other volunteer programs across the world. Maybe you could have a volunteer program. Maybe we could harness the power of backpackers that are coming locally. We could have them come in. We could have them have zero contact with the children because there's this weird thing. It's sort of like volunteerism thing that happens where people will arrive, they'll take pictures with the kids and then they'll fuck off. So we'll make it so that they're protected. We'll use these guidelines from other projects that you don't have access to, but now I do. We'll translate them. We'll get them out. We'll speak to all the local hostels that I've got to know. And we will maybe do something at the same time. Maybe I'll fundraise. Maybe we'll replace some windows. Maybe we'll like get some stuff for the kitchen and things. And she was all biz. I really just I love her. I loved her, I was going to say, but I really love her. She's such a sweetie. And her mummy, who's also in the Telegraph article, just worked their asses off to survive and support these people. So I was doing that, and then at the same time, I met. This is round the houses to get to this, but I then met basically the man of my dreams. He was gorgeous and was right in all of the ways that you would want and expect. Was the most charming, decent, wonderful, welcoming person. I had met him on Amanda Ferguson in the article talks about dating apps. I'd met him on Grindr. So I think it was real. It was a sex thing, you know, where I wanted a ride, and I got a ride, and then over sort of the period. We sort of, I can only speak from my perspective. I don't know what he was going through at the time or what his agenda was at the time. But from my perspective, I really fell for this person. I felt like we really connected. And we came to a place of feeling like we were maybe going to be a little bit more permanent. I, at that point, did a bit of fundraising for that project and had decided to stay in the town for a while. Maddie had went off to the Galapagos because he couldn't just hang about in the hostel while I was living my fucking, I don't know, he had dream. And I was doing Spanish lessons with a wonderful woman.
And I think it's important to say here as well was that he wasn't out. You know, there was still that sort of underlying shame and secrecy and things like that as well because they weren't out to their family. You know,
no. So their family were very wealthy. They had a couple of homes. They had a city apartment, this gorgeous apartment, and then they had this like big house in the country, like big Jurassic Parky. It's like gorgeous gardens, these lovely dogs. Not that the dogs are relevant, but these lovely dogs. And they were, what I gathered was that they were like a very political family in Bolivia. Now Bolivia is not known for its democratic ideals, so pretty spicy. It's also known for drugs and for all sorts of things, and that could potentially be that put in my mind that put them in potentially quite a scary space, but also quite a spicy space. I was like, fucking check me out, like I'm riding Pablo Escobar's son, like really. Now that's the story that I told myself. I don't know, but they had a lot of money. They were very powerful, and he was bar a few friends in the closet. Another thing that he was in the closet about that he didn't inform me of was that he was HIV positive. And when we started, from my perspective, falling for each other, we had a conversation to say, we're really into this. I would like to see where this is going to go. I'm going to stay here for a while. I'm going to do my Spanish lessons. I'm going to work for this project. I've got some money. I'm going to volunteer for this project. I've got some money set aside so I can do that. But let's see what the crack is. So let's maybe discuss what that looks like, because it's not that we're just riding people. It's that we are... following that conversation, pardon the cut there, we had a little phone call from our next guest. We're very excited. But yeah, so as part of that conversation, we decided to be exclusive with each other. So for anyone that's out there that is, I suppose that people know what that means. So we decided to stop riding other people. And we decided, really at his request, that we would get tested. So we were going to get, well, he requested not to wear condoms. I requested, because I take sexual health really quite seriously, that we test before that. And as part of those tests, I went and made sure that I was free of everything. And apparently so did he. But he showed me his results, which said that everything was negative, which is, and the big one really, because it's the thing that the big few is Hep C and HIV, because it's the ones that, yes, we have treatments for now, but are lifelong, they will stay with you. And I scanned for those and seen HIV, and it said negativo, which I took as negative, which it should be. And I now know those documents to, or I now assume those documents to be fake. So we then, it's in the article, so I really would, if you're listening now and you're interested, it's linked. It's linked on our Instagram and TikTok bio, all the Linktree bios, you'll find it. But we then went into a relationship that just felt more like a relationship. We were kind of always, if we weren't, and you sort of, you know this, people that I'm with, I'm sort of like, once I'm in, I'm sort of attached. I don't know if that's healthy, but I really was. And we were having an amazing time. We were having amazing sex. It was wonderful. And we had an awful lot of it. A lot of the sex we were having, now with hindsight, I can see. And I think a lot of the sex we were having was intentionally designed to pass HIV to me. He was HIV positive, and he was aware of that. And we were having some sex that was really very risky in that aspect. Some things that I just really wasn't very comfortable with, and some things that, because I was with them and they were perfect in my eyes, I allowed to happen. So pardon that second cut. Our guest has just arrived, and oh my God, they're glamorous, aren't they? We have so many wonderful episodes coming up. Like today, we're actually filming for a Christmas special. So where do we get to?
So you were talking about risky sexual practices.
So
I think it's just also, for anybody that hasn't read the article, it's important to also add in there about he then, on a night where you both got really drunk and high and things like that, then he then admitted to you what he's been trying to do, so it wasn't just an assumption.
Yeah, so it's not an assumption. I know it because I was told it. But following that, we just got more and more serious, and then we went out one night and got so wrecked in an Irish bar in Sucray that I got kicked out. Because I was dancing on the stage and kicked off all the lights and everything. I don't know how that happened, but Carlos, because of his reputation, because I think that his family and how they're seen in that city and how word would spread, was very embarrassed by that, and I was really very upset, sort of unusually upset for what had happened, and started crying. I eventually got him into a taxi, and he wouldn't let me get in. And I knew that he was more upset than what had just happened. He was very drunk. He was high and he was drunk, and it was too much. I have a thing that if something kicks off that is so heightened in the emotion of that it's really important to just work it out, so that we're not sitting for another few days afterwards thinking, what the fuck happened? In the moment, especially when you're high and when you're drunk, maybe you can express it more, that you can get that out of you. And we went home to do that. So eventually he allowed me in to have the conversation, and really as soon as we sat down, he said, I've got something to tell you. And I knew what it was. I hoped it wasn't what was about to come out of his mouth, but there was just something in my heart and soul that knew that that my intuition had picked up on, but he let me know that night that he was HIV positive, and my first question to him was, were you intentionally trying to pass that to me? And his answer to that was yes, that he had did that, and he was trying to do that to me, and he had did that to other people. So again, we talk about it in the article as well, but I don't know if we actually do. We talked to Amanda about it anyways, but I went straight to this forgiveness space. I was at the other side of the world, up on the top of the Andes, with a very questionable person with a somewhat questionable family. And I went straight to forgiveness because
coping mechanism.
I think so. Yeah. I think it was the fact that at that time I had nobody else, and I really needed him and his support. Weirdly, I needed sort of that security. So following that, we tested. What happens, or what happened what would have happened at that time when you test, from the last time that you were at risk of becoming HIV or HIV being passed to you, from that last time, it could take up to 3 months for the virus to become present in your blood and testable within it. So you sort of start the clock running there. For those 3 months, I was absolutely convinced, and really so was he, that I was HIV positive, that what I now know to be sexual violence had resulted in that happening to me. And after testing, it was negative in Bolivia, but after testing there and another few times, it really was up until the very, very last moment in the Rainbow Project in Belfast.
And the Rainbow Project, like they with what you were talking about with them, you know, whenever you told them the story, you could also tell that they were bracing themselves for the worst at the same time.
So
and that your dad
shout out to John O'Doherty, because I reached out to him. I think I maybe just had John's email from years ago to go and do a protest or something, or him telling me off about a placard or something. Yeah. And I reached out to say, look, I'm really going through this. I'm really scared. I really need help. And I think I explicitly told him I just want to top myself. My plan at the time was, rather than what I expected off the back of Maddie Cavan's article and all of that experience all those years ago, rather than being loud and proud and shouting from the rooftops and educating people, I went straight into a fear space, and I thought, I don't want to be gay. I'm already gay, Connor. I don't want to be HIV positive gay Connor, victim of God knows whatever it was at that stage. And all the other bits, I actually just thought I wanted to disappear. So my plan was to go into the Amazon and just take loads and loads of drugs. I really turned to drugs. I was sort of in a journey that I went from my breakdown in Belfast through the sort of cycle of ups and downs with it. And that really put me on this extreme high with prescription drugs, so taking kind of everything that I could get my hands on just to be numb. And I thought, wow, if I take enough of these and I go somewhere so remote, I'll never be found. Yeah. It'll be in my madness. I thought, well, better that and me, I don't know, ending up dead in some house in Belfast in a few years. Better than that, I can go missing in the Amazon. So it actually happened while talking to Amanda. I was telling her that story and what the crack was, and describing how that was my plan, and how I had sort of visualized that if you die, no matter, we're all going to die, we're all going to go, but no matter how that happens, if you can do it in a bit of style, if you are hit by a Rolling Stones bus, tour bus, it's better that than just, an Ulster bus. I think it was that way of thinking. And I thought, well, if I just go missing, and Amanda, when I was telling the story, came up with a headline, which was like, aid worker goes missing in Amazon. And I was like, yes, that is much better than this that I'm feeling right now, and having to deal with this pain and having to work this through and having to do it again and again and again. That I'll go for that. That'll work for me. But
you made it home.
I made it home. Yeah. Via Columbia to go and see Matt, because I didn't want to spend those 3 months waiting with my parents in Carrickfergus, waiting for the big news. So I had a wee bit left, and he demanded that I get a flight to come and see him. And I went to Columbia and took a lot of coke, just to put it out there, a lot a lot of drugs. God love him. At times, I think he thought I was. I mean, at those times when you're feeling that pain, you're at such high risk of undervaluing yourself so much that you really put yourself through more than you know you can take. And I think it was very much in that space. People like Julie Preston, I reached out to very little people, but people like Julie Preston, a friend of ours, I reached out to, and she is a yogi now, but has a whole history with partying and with life, and she was able to say that to me, like, just know that you are going to really seriously undervalue your life right now. So if you are intending to do drugs of any sort, prescription or otherwise, do just be really careful. Think about that next hit, and maybe just give it another 10 minutes.
She also saved your life.
Oh, the list is the length. The list is the length of really my arm, including Becky and so many other people out there.
That's what we always say, and that's why we say it, because yes, it can be people that can cause the harm, but it's always the people that pull you back from it as well. You know, it's the love. It's why for your TED Talk you called it like "There's no place like love," because it was love that was the thing, and the people around you who were able to change your world in that way.
I still love that name. I think it's brilliant.
And the other thing as well, in terms of the missing piece, you know, you've talked many times about how the Rainbow Project have been a literal lifesaver. So now, in terms of even again talking about your TED Talk and things, how that was why, do you know, like, so whenever you've talked about the Rainbow Project saving your life and bringing you through it, you know, they also gave you counselling.
They were incredible.
You know, which was a game changer for you.
The services of Rainbow Project are life-saving.
Yeah.
So they provide sexual health testing. Go and get it. You should really go on a 3-month rotation. I did for years. Now it says in this article I still do. I haven't for a long time because I've not been putting my dick anywhere else. But they provide that, and they provide counselling. Counselling for me was a real life saver. I had a counsellor called Sarah that has made such an impression on my soul and my existence that it's that I think about her all the time.
Same.
Just people within that space that were so supportive and so kind and so understanding in a space where I felt a massive amount of shame, and I didn't have the understanding that I should have had at the time. Not should have had, but I came to eventually. The Rainbow Project is where I went to test for the last time when I first came back to Belfast via Glasgow to see Claire and Ashley, who were wonderful. Again, friends on the way that just are there to give you the support that you need. But my dad was part of that. My mum actually wasn't. I didn't let my mum know because I didn't think she could take it from the other side of the world. But I let my dad know what I was going through, and he was incredibly supportive, really wonderful. And he beaked off work. I don't know what it's called, skiving off work.
Yeah. He
skived off work one day, and he met me on Portland Street, and we went into the Rainbow Project to test because I thought I was I thought I was going to find out that I was HIV positive, and I needed that support. I was also there with my cousin Emma, who I had travelled with and had been in contact with through the whole experience, and
the doctor and his girlfriend that we were going to see in Barcelona. What was their name?
God, we
Lucas?
could someday. Do you know what? Someday we'll put it in the book. Shout out to Katrina and Lucas and everyone else throughout that journey, because it's so rich. We really could talk about this forever.
There are so many lifesavers, you know, and it's just people being really human, and people having time, and people sometimes putting themselves really out or really at risk to just say, no, I'm going to help you now.
Hello, Becky gave up her whole life. She left her husband. She sold her amazing house. She had an incredible career, and attached to her being and her life to a fucked up drug addict, mental case, who had this mad idea that they want to do something to help people because it's better than like not being here. So I'm very grateful for that.
No regrets.
I think we really need to wrap because we have been talking for a long time. I'm sorry that I spent so much time talking about Greece. I just didn't.
Shouldn't be. It's really important.
I didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah. No, it's where we are, and I think it's actually a really important part of the story. You know, like 1,000 words couldn't possibly begin to capture what you went through. Yeah. And the reason why, you know, and we haven't even talked about how before you went travelling, you were stabbed. Do you know, there are so many things that have happened to you over the years.
We'll have a stabbing episode here. This podcast has got so bloody uplifting.
Yeah.
It's wild.
But, you know, like, so sometimes whenever we can be a lot, whenever we can seem like we are fucking fierce, or we are maybe impatient, or we will take no fucking shit off you that day, sometimes it helps for people to kind of understand why, do you know? And we will have all of the empathy in the world. We try so hard to do so many things, and that's not because we are running from anything anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it's because we are so fucking grateful. We're so grateful to all of the people who got us where we are, as in keeping you alive and keeping our house not from like being lost over the years.
Also believing in our project, the sort of the force that has kept us here and has supported us. Well, not financially until very recently, but has given me a sense of purpose. We say this a lot, but our project was meant to be a 6-week pop-up that was a fundraiser for Rainbow Project because they had saved my life. We didn't say that at the time. That kind of I love this line, so I'm going to keep on using it, but it kind of just got out of hand, and it's now went 6 years. But I'm really, really proud of what we're doing. I'm really happy to be here. I'm so proud. Actually, the next person we're going to talk to is a recent partnership that we've had with, we've talked about it a lot, but Mints, the big gay warehouse party. Just people that we've met along the way that are amazing. And
there's a community,
love. And actually people in the city that I kind of ran away from, that are wonderful and have stayed and are here to support each other and are here to create wonderful things and to give people life, and to like we're trying to do is bring communities together, and
we believe it.
And it's back to Jackie's words. If you can't change the world, you can change someone's world. But then there's lots of people that have did that for us. It's also just knowing that you've got that. One thing that I want to finish with is the little kind of, it's called a breakout box. I just love behind the scenes, and we'll find that out from Amanda Ferguson, but it is it's here in the article, and it says HIV is no longer a terminal condition, rather a chronic long-term condition. Over time, HIV damages the immune system. It is transmitted through unprotected sex with an HIV positive partner, from mother to baby during pregnancy, childbirth or breastfeeding, or through sharing infected needles or drugs equipment. They also, the most important part of this is that they've also included some of the support services that are out there. People like the Rainbow Project, you've heard, if you're LGBT, reach out to them. They're lifesavers. They will help you. They've helped so many people in our community, and they do really amazing work. Also, Rape Crisis, if you are now a survivor or a recent victim of sexual violence or rape, call them, have a conversation with someone who's been through it. It will make a massive difference. And if you really are, it says here, in distress or despair, know that you can call Samaritan's Lifeline or the police. Know that the police are there to provide that service. If you're really worried about someone, there's a whole host of things that you can do if someone's at immediate risk to themselves. But number one, call the police, ask for advice, and
speak up, speak out, be a good friend, be a good neighbour. Just like look out for each other,
and
you know,
and just don't be too fucking hard on yourself. It's really, life is so hard, but it's
worth it.
Yeah, it's worth it, and in the madness and in the sadness and in the trauma and in the stress, there is real beauty, and from that comes art and play and expression and joy, which we've experienced a lot of. So thank you to everyone that has interacted with this. I'm sorry for listening. You can probably not even understand a word I'm bloody saying. But I really do appreciate it. We appreciate all of the messages and the comments and everything else, because this week has been a lot.
It really has.
Like a lot.
And it's almost been like the support has been almost overwhelming, but in
So
the
much
best
so.
possible way.
So much so.
Yeah.
By this week, I think when this goes out, it's last week. It might be weeks and weeks.
The time Seán's done editing.
But thank you. We're going to.
That wasn't a raid. I was actually talking about our chops.
Fucking slow bastard.
Well, look, thank you again. We really are going to sign off. We'll talk about this another day. Of course, we're going to speak to Maddie Kavanagh and talk in depth about their experience and really get into the sexual violence and the other parts of this story. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, and show some love.
Yeah, thank you. Show some love.